The morning sun rose over the green fields of verdant prime. Taemin Park walked between the tall corn plants, checking each one with care. The corn was almost ready for harvest. The golden ears hung heavy on their stalks, swaying gently in the warm breeze. "Dad, the water system needs checking in Sector 7, called his daughter, So Young. She was 19 years old with bright eyes and strong hands from years of farm work. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple ponytail as she jogged between the rows of crops. Taemin nodded and smiled. "Tell your brother to help you. I'll finish here and meet you both there." So Young waved and ran toward the equipment barn. Taemin watched her go, feeling proud. Both his children worked hard on the farm. They understood the value of growing food and taking care of the land. The settlement of Verdant Prime was home to about 300 families. All of them were farmers who grew different crops. Some raised animals like cattle and chickens. Others grew fruits and vegetables. The community worked together, sharing tools and helping during busy times like planting and harvest. Taemin continued walking through his fields. He had been farming here for 15 years. Before that, his life had been very different. But now he loved the quiet mornings, the smell of fresh earth, and the satisfaction of growing food that fed people across the galaxy. The farms on Verdant Prime were known for producing the best crops in this part of space. Their corn was sweeter, their wheat stronger, and their fruits more colorful than crops grown on other worlds. Traders came from many planets to buy their food. As Taemin reached the end of his field, he heard the sound of machinery. His son, Jae-ho, was working on one of the large harvesting machines. The 17-year-old boy was good with tools and could fix almost anything. "How's it looking?" Taemin asked, walking up to the machine. Jae-ho wiped oil from his hands with a rag. "The harvester is running perfectly, Dad. I upgraded the cutting system yesterday. It should work twice as fast now." Taemin raised an eyebrow. "You upgraded it? Where did you learn to do that?" Jae-ho grinned. "I read some technical manuals. The old system was too slow for our needs. This new design will cut through crops much cleaner and faster." His father looked at the machine more carefully. The modifications were very advanced. Too advanced for a simple farm boy to understand, even a smart one like Jae-ho. But Taemin just nodded and patted his son's shoulder. "Good work. Make sure it's ready for harvest time next week." The three family members worked together in Sector 7, checking the irrigation pipes that carried water to the crops. The system was very sophisticated, with sensors that could tell exactly how much water each plant needed. Computer controls adjusted the flow automatically. "This technology is really amazing," So Young said as she checked a sensor. "Most farms on other planets still water their crops by hand." "We're lucky to have such good equipment," Taemin replied. But he knew it wasn't luck. The farming equipment on Verdant Prime was far more advanced than what most agricultural worlds used. Someone with a lot of money and knowledge had provided it. As they worked, other farmers passed by and waved. Old man Hyunwoo Lee drove past, in a large transport vehicle, heading toward the underground storage areas where they kept equipment and supplies. Elder Bo-ram Kim walked through the central area of the settlement, checking on different families and making sure everyone had what they needed. Bo-ram was 70 years old and had been the leader of their community for as long as anyone could remember. She was small and thin, but everyone respected her wisdom and kindness. She seemed to know everything about farming and always had good advice when problems came up. Elder Bo-ram knows a lot about many things, So Young observed as they watched. The old woman talked to a group of younger farmers. "Sometimes I wonder where she learned so much." Taemin was quiet for a moment. "She's lived a long life. People learn many things when they live long enough." That afternoon, the Park family joined other families for lunch in the community hall. Long tables were filled with fresh bread, vegetables, and meat from their farms. Children played nearby, while adults talked about crops, weather, and plans for the coming harvest. The conversation was normal farmer talk, but Taemin noticed how people moved. They sat with their backs to walls. They kept their eyes on the doors. When they walked, their steps were quiet and careful. These were small things that most people wouldn't notice, but Taemin saw them. After lunch, Hyunwoo approached Taemin. "Can you help me with some equipment maintenance this evening? I need an extra pair of hands." "Of course," Taemin agreed. "What kind of maintenance?" "Just some routine checks on the underground systems. Nothing complicated. That evening, Taemin followed Hyunwoo to a building that looked like a regular storage barn. Inside, Hyunwoo pressed his hand against what appeared to be a plain wall. The wall slid away, revealing an elevator. "After you," Hyunwoo said with a small smile. The elevator went down much farther than Taemin expected. When the doors opened, he saw a large underground facility filled with equipment that definitely didn't belong on a farm. Computers lined the walls, their screens showing information about space around their planet. Communication devices that could send messages across the galaxy sat on metal tables. "Impressive, isn't it?" Hyunwoo asked, seeing Taemin's expression. "We maintain all the settlement's advanced systems from here." "This is far beyond what farmers need," Taemin said, carefully. "Yes, it is. But then again, we're not exactly ordinary farmers, are we?" The two men looked at each other for a long moment. Finally, Hyunwoo walked to one of the computer stations and began typing. "Our long-range sensors have been picking up some interesting readings. Large ships moving toward our system." Taemin's expression became serious. "How large?" "Very large. Military large. And there are many of them." "How long do we have?" 3 days? Maybe 4 before they reach us." Taemin walked to another computer screen that showed a map of space around their planet. Red dots marked the approaching ships. There were many red dots. "Do we know who they are?" he asked. Hyunwoo typed more commands and information appeared on the screen. Ship designs, energy signatures, and identification codes filled the display. "Valdorian Imperial Fleet," Hyunwoo said quietly. 50 warships, including their flagship. Admiral Korth Valdorian is commanding." Taemin's face became very serious. The Valdorian Empire was known throughout the galaxy as the most powerful and cruel military force in space. They had conquered hundreds of worlds and enslaved millions of people. They showed no mercy to anyone who stood in their way. "Why would they come here?" Taemin asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "Same reason they go anywhere. To show their power and take what they want. They probably think we're just helpless farmers who will surrender without a fight." "And what do we do about it?" Hyunwoo smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "We show them how wrong they are." As the two men stood in the underground facility, surrounded by technology that no ordinary farm should have, Taemin felt something he hadn't felt in 15 years. The calm, peaceful farmer was still there. But underneath, something else was waking up. Something that had been sleeping, but never really gone. Above them, the settlement of Verdant Prime continued its evening routine. Children played in the last light of the sun. Families prepared for another quiet night on their peaceful farming world. But in the underground facility and in other hidden places around the settlement, preparations of a very different kind were beginning. The Valdorian Empire was coming to Verdant Prime. They expected to find helpless farmers growing crops under an open sky. They had no idea what they were actually about to encounter. 3 days to prepare. For the Valdorians, it seemed like more than enough time to plan the conquest of a simple farming world. For the farmers of Verdant Prime, 3 days might just be enough time to remind the galaxy why it was never a good idea to attack a human farm. Admiral Korth Valdorian stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Extinction's Edge. Through the large windows, he could see the stars rushing past as his fleet moved through space at incredible speed. 50 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy followed behind him, their dark hulls reflecting no light. The Valdorian Empire had ruled over 847 star systems for more than 1,000 years. Their military was feared across the galaxy. When Valdorian ships appeared in a system, planets surrendered immediately or faced complete destruction. "Admiral, we will reach the target system in 72 hours, reported Commander Vex, his second in command. The tall, gray-skinned Valdorian officer stood at attention, waiting for orders. "Good. Tell me about this human settlement again," Korth demanded, his yellow eyes focusing on the display screen in front of him. "The planet is called Verdant Prime. Population approximately 900 humans. They grow food crops and raise animals. Our intelligence shows no military installations, no defense systems, and no armed forces." Korth smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Perfect. The humans are a young species. They spread across many worlds but have no real power. This attack will send a message to other systems in this region. What message, sir? That the Valdorian Empire takes what it wants, when it wants it. These farmers will become slaves. Their crops will feed our armies. Their planet will become another example of what happens to those who live in space we desire. Commander Vex nodded. The attack plan is simple. Orbital bombardment of any large buildings, then ground troops to secure the population. How long will the operation take? No. More than 6 hours, Admiral. Probably less. Korth turned back to look at the stars. The humans have been lucky so far. They've avoided conflict with any major powers, but luck always runs out eventually. Meanwhile, on Verdant Prime, Elder Boram Kim sat in what appeared to be a simple office in the community hall. But behind a hidden wall panel was sophisticated communication equipment that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she composed a coded message. The message would travel through secret channels to reach Admiral Dong-Hyun Choi of the Human Star Force, currently stationed 3 systems away. Valdorian Imperial Fleet approaching Verdant Prime. 50 ships including flagship. Arrival in 72 hours. Request no immediate assistance. We will handle this situation ourselves. We'll contact again after pest control is complete. Boram sent the message and leaned back in her chair. She was 70 years old, but her mind was as sharp as ever. For 15 years, she had led this community of farmers. But before that, she had been something very different. A knock came at her door. "Come in," she called. Taemin entered, followed by Hyun Woo. Both men looked serious. "We've confirmed the fleet size and composition," Taemin reported. 50 Valdorian warships. They'll be here in 3 days. "I know," Boram replied. "I've sent word to Admiral Choi, but we won't wait for help. How long since we've run a full combat exercise?" 2 years, Hyunwoo answered, "but everyone remembers their training. The equipment is maintained and ready." Boram stood up slowly. "Then it's time to remind our people who they really are." That evening, families gathered in the community hall as they did every week for their regular meeting. Children sat with their parents while Elder Boram stood at the front of the room. But tonight felt different. The adults seemed more alert, more focused. "My friends," Boram began, "we have visitors coming to our world. They are not the friendly kind of visitors who want to buy our crops or learn our farming methods." So Young leaned forward in her seat. Next to her, Jae-ho's eyes were wide with attention. Around the room, other young people who had grown up on Verdant Prime listened carefully. "The Valdorian Imperial Fleet will arrive in 3 days. They think we are helpless farmers who will surrender without a fight. They plan to make us slaves and take our world." Murmurs went through the crowd, but no one seemed surprised or afraid. Instead, the adults looked almost relieved, as if they had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "It's time for our children to learn the truth about their families and their community," Boram continued. "Taemin, would you like to explain to So Young and Jae-ho who you really are?" Taemin stood up and looked at his children. "So Young, Jae-ho, I need to tell you something about your father. I am a farmer, and I love farming. But before I came to Verdant Prime, I was a colonel in the Human Star Force Special Operations Division." So Young's mouth fell open. "You were a soldier?" "Not just a soldier. I led missions against some of the most dangerous enemies in the galaxy. I commanded elite troops in battles that decided the fate of entire star systems." Jae-ho stared at his father. "But you're so peaceful. You love growing things." "That's exactly why I left the military, son. After 25 years of war, I wanted peace. I wanted to create life instead of taking it. But the skills I learned never go away." Around the room, other parents were having similar conversations with their children. Dr. Mi-young Seo, who everyone knew as the settlement's veterinarian, revealed that she had been a military scientist who developed advanced weapons systems. Jin-woo Nam, the school teacher, had been a tactical combat instructor who trained special forces units. One by one, the true backgrounds of Verdant Prime's residents came to light. Former military engineers, combat pilots, intelligence officers, medical specialists, and weapons experts. Every adult in the settlement had served in the Human Star Force at the highest levels. "Why did you all come here?" asked a young woman named Hei Wan, whose parents had just revealed they were former starship commanders. Because after the last war, we were tired of fighting, explained her mother, Captain Sujin Park. We wanted to live quietly and grow things instead of destroying them. But we also knew that someday, someone might threaten the peaceful life we had built. Elder Boram raised her hand for attention. 15 years ago, the human Star Force created several agricultural settlements like ours. They are peaceful farming communities, but they are also hidden defensive positions. If any enemy attacks human space, they will discover that our farmers are not as helpless as they appear. Hyunwoo stood up next. Tomorrow, we begin preparations. The barns will be open to reveal equipment storage. The irrigation systems will convert to defensive networks. The harvesting machines will show their real capabilities. What about us? So Young asked, speaking for all the young people in the room. What can we do? Her father smiled. You've been trained your whole lives, even if you didn't know it. Those games you played as children, those exercises you thought were just fun activities, those lessons about thinking quickly and working as a team, all of that was preparation for this moment. Jae-ho thought about all the times his father had taught him to fix machines, how quickly he had learned to understand complex technology, how his sister always seemed to know where everyone was during their community activities. We've been training to be soldiers without knowing it, he said slowly. You've been training to defend your home and your family, Tae-min corrected. There's a difference. Elder Boram looked around the room at all the families. The Valdorians think they are attacking a defenseless farming world. They expect us to surrender when we see their ships. Instead, they are about to learn what happens when you threaten a human family's home. Dr. Mi-young stood up. I have special projects that have been waiting for 15 years to be tested. The Valdorians will provide an excellent opportunity to see how well they work. What kind of projects? Asked someone from the back of the room. Mi-young smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Let's just say that our crops aren't the only things that have been genetically modified on this world. As the meeting ended, families walked home under the stars. But instead of going to bed, many adults went to work. Hidden panels opened in barns and storage buildings. Underground facilities that had been sealed for years were reopened and powered up. Hyunwoo led a team to the equipment storage areas. What the Valdorians' sensors would see as farming machinery was about to reveal its true nature. Harvesters that could be converted to mobile weapons platforms, irrigation systems that could become automated defense networks, and communication equipment powerful enough to coordinate military operations across an entire star system. So Young and Jae-ho worked alongside their parents, finally understanding why their education had included so many subjects that seemed unrelated to farming. Navigation, engineering, tactical thinking, and teamwork weren't just useful skills for growing crops. I can't believe our whole life has been preparation for war, So Young said, as she helped her father check weapons that had been hidden in their barn for 15 years. Not war, Taemin replied. Preparation for defending what we love. There's a big difference. As the night continued, the peaceful farming settlement of Verdant Prime began its transformation. But the change wasn't from farmers to soldiers. It was the awakening of soldiers who had chosen to become farmers and who would fight to protect the peaceful life they had built. In space, the Valdorian fleet continued its approach. Admiral Korth Valdorian studied reports about the helpless human farming world they would conquer in just over 2 days. He had no idea that every hour brought his ships closer to. The transformation of Verdant Prime began before sunrise. What had been a quiet farming settlement for 15 years suddenly buzzed with purposeful activity. But to any outside observer, it would still look like farmers preparing for harvest time. Taemin stood in his barn as Hyunwoo operated hidden controls. The floor slid away to reveal a large underground chamber filled with military equipment. Weapons, armor, communication devices, and vehicles that had been stored in perfect condition for 15 years. Everything is exactly as we left it, Hyunwoo said with satisfaction. The preservation systems worked perfectly. So Young and Jae-ho climbed down into the hidden chamber, their eyes wide with amazement. Sleek combat suits hung on racks along the walls. Advanced weapons that could destroy armored vehicles sat in storage cases. Computer systems more sophisticated than anything on most military ships waited to be activated. This is incredible. Jeho breathed. All this time, we were living on top of an entire military base. Not just us, Taemin explained. Every family in the settlement has similar storage areas. When we chose to become farmers, the human Star Force made sure we could defend ourselves if necessary. Dr. Myung Seo arrived carrying several sealed containers. She set them down carefully on a work table and began opening them. Inside were small devices that looked like seeds. These are my special projects, she explained to the young people. Biomechanical organisms designed to integrate with our crops and create defensive systems. I've been developing them slowly over the years, testing them in small sections of our fields. What do they do? So Young asked. Watch, Mi Young said. She took one of the seed-like devices and placed it in a small pot of soil. Within minutes, tiny roots began growing from it, spreading through the dirt. Then small green shoots appeared and started growing upward. It grows like a plant, Jeho observed. But it's not really a plant, Mi Young replied. It's a living machine. When it's fully grown, it can do many things. Detect enemies, send signals, even release defensive chemicals if threatened. She gestured toward the fields outside. I've been gradually planting these throughout our crops for the past 5 years. The Valdorians think they're attacking helpless farmers. They have no idea that our fields themselves will fight back. Meanwhile, in the underground command center beneath the community hall, Elder Boram worked with Jinwoo Nam to establish communication with other hidden installations. The screens around them lit up as responses came in from what appeared to be mining operations on nearby asteroids and agricultural settlements on 2 other planets in the system. Station 7 responding, all systems operational, came a voice from the asteroid belt. Harvest Moon Base ready for activation, reported another voice from the smaller farming world in the outer system. Garden Station confirms full defensive capability, added a third voice from the other major agricultural planet. Jinwoo looked at the tactical display showing their entire defensive network. The Valdorians think they're attacking one small farming world. They have no idea they're entering a system with 6 fully operational military installations. How many total personnel? Boram asked. Approximately 1,500 active defenders across all stations. All former Star Force, all with full equipment loads. Elder Boram smiled. 1,500 of the galaxy's best former soldiers against 50 Valdorian ships. The odds are almost fair. Across the settlement, other families were making their own preparations. Captain Sujin Park, the former starship commander, worked with her daughter Hae-won to convert their grain storage silos. Hidden panels opened to reveal that the silos contained advanced missile systems. Mom, these missiles could destroy a battleship, Hae-won said as she read the specifications on the weapons. Each silo contains 12 quantum torpedoes, Sujin confirmed. We have 40 silos in this settlement alone. That's enough firepower to cripple their entire fleet. But how do we aim them? We don't have targeting systems. Sujin pointed upward. Look more carefully at our communication tower. Hae-won studied the tall tower that had always been used for sending messages to traders and other farming communities. But now she noticed details she had never seen before. Hidden antenna arrays, sophisticated scanning equipment, and what looked like military-grade sensor systems. The whole tower is actually a targeting and fire control system, she realized. Your education in mathematics and computer systems wasn't just to help with farming logistics, her mother explained. You're going to help operate our fire control systems. Similar scenes played out across Verdant Prime as families prepared for battle. Young people who had grown up as farmers discovered they had been trained for war without knowing it. Parents who had seemed like simple agricultural workers revealed their true backgrounds as elite military specialists. But the most impressive transformation was happening to the farming equipment itself. Hyunwoo led a team of mechanics in converting the settlement's machinery for combat use. The large harvesters that cut crops were modified to become mobile weapons platforms. Their cutting systems could slice through enemy armor. Hidden compartments revealed mounted weapons. Thick armor plating could protect operators from enemy fire. The irrigation pipes that carried water throughout the fields were revealed to be a sophisticated tunnel system that allowed defenders to move unseen around the entire settlement. Emergency airlocks and life support systems showed these tunnels could be used even if the surface was under attack. Even the simple farm vehicles had hidden capabilities. Storage compartments opened to reveal advanced engines that could make them as fast as military vehicles, communication systems that could coordinate with orbital defenses, armor plating that could stop enemy weapons. It's like the entire settlement is one giant machine that's been pretending to be a farm, Jeho said as he watched the transformations. That's exactly what it is, his father replied. We built a perfect disguise, but now it's time to show what's underneath. As the day continued, the hidden network throughout the star system activated completely. The asteroid mining operations revealed massive gun platforms that had been disguised as ore processing equipment. The other farming worlds began similar transformations, awakening defensive systems that had waited years for activation. Dr. Mi Young's biomechanical organisms spread through the crop fields rapidly. To any observer, the fields would still look normal. But now every plant could serve as a sensor, every field could become a weapons platform, and the entire agricultural area could coordinate as a single defensive system. The Valdorians will have to land troops if they want to capture our people and our world, Mi Young explained to a group of defenders. When they do, they'll discover that our corn can detect their movements, our wheat can release blinding chemicals, and our fruit trees can coordinate targeting data for our hidden weapons. By evening, reports came in from all defensive positions. The transformation was complete. What appeared to be a peaceful farming settlement was now a fortress that could challenge any enemy fleet. What looked like simple agricultural worlds throughout the system were actually a coordinated military network. Elder Bo-Ram stood in the command center, watching displays that showed the full extent of their preparations. Hundreds of hidden weapons, thousands of defensive positions, and a communications network that could coordinate the defense of the entire star system. Admiral Choi sent a response to our message, Jinwoo reported. He acknowledges our situation and confirms that Force backup is available if needed, but he agrees we should handle this ourselves. How far away is the nearest Star Force fleet? Asked Tae-min. 6 hours at maximum speed, but we won't need them. Bo-Ram nodded. Send a message to all positions. Final preparations tonight. Tomorrow, we wait. The Valdorians will arrive thinking they're conquering helpless farmers. Instead, they're about to discover what happens when you attack a human family's home. As night fell over Verdant Prime, the settlement looked peaceful from space. Warm lights glowed in farmhouse windows. The fields were quiet and still. Anyone scanning the planet would see exactly what the Valdorians expected. A simple agricultural world with no defenses and no military capability. But beneath the surface, in hidden chambers and disguised installations, some of the galaxy's most elite former soldiers prepared for battle. Weapons that had been waiting 15 years for use were loaded and tested. Communication systems established contact with defensive positions throughout the star system. Biomechanical organisms spread through crop fields, creating a living, defensive network. So Young and Jeho worked alongside their parents, finally understanding their true heritage. They were farmers, and they loved farming. But they were also the children of warriors, and they would fight to protect the peaceful life their family had built. Are you scared? So Young asked her brother as they checked equipment in their families. Hidden armory. A little, Jeho admitted, but also excited. We've trained for this our whole lives without knowing it. Now we get to find out what we're really capable of. Above them, stars shone down on a world that appeared helpless and undefended. In space, the Valdorian fleet continued its approach, confident they were about to claim an easy victory. Admiral Korth Valdorian had no idea that his 50 warships were flying toward the most. The Valdorian fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Verdant Prime system. 50 massive warships appeared in perfect formation, their dark hulls reflecting the light of the system's star. On the bridge of the flagship extinctions, Edge, Admiral Korth Valdorian smiled as his sensors confirmed what intelligence had reported. Admiral, we are detecting one inhabited planet with approximately 900 human life signs, Commander Vex reported. No military installations, no defensive systems, no armed spacecraft. Perfect, Korth replied, studying the peaceful world on his main screen. Green fields covered most of the continents. Small settlements dotted the landscape. Everything looked exactly as expected. A helpless farming world ready for conquest. Shall we begin orbital bombardment, sir? Not yet. First, we give them a chance to surrender. It's more satisfying when they choose submission over destruction. On Verdant Prime, Elder Bo-Ram Kim stood in the underground command center, watching the Valdorian fleet on her screens. Around her, former Star Force officers monitored defensive systems that had been hidden for 15 years. They're taking their time, observed Jinwoo Nam from his tactical station. Probably trying to decide if we're worth the ammunition. Let them think we're helpless, Bo-Ram replied calmly. The longer they wait, the better our positions become. Taemin's voice came through the communication system from his family's farm. All field positions report ready. The biomechanical organisms are fully integrated with our crops. Every plant in our fields can now serve as a sensor or defensive unit. Excellent. Dr. Mi-young, are your special projects ready? More than ready, came the scientist's voice from her laboratory. The Valdorians are about to discover that attacking a genetically modified crop world has some unexpected consequences. Admiral Korth opened a communication channel that broadcast to the entire planet. His image appeared on screens throughout the settlement, though the farmers made sure he couldn't see them watching. Humans of Verdant Prime, Korth announced in his harsh voice. I am Admiral Korth Valdorian of the Imperial Fleet. Your world is now under Valdorian control. You will surrender immediately and prepare for transport to labor facilities. Any resistance will result in complete destruction of your settlement. In the command center, Elder Bo-Ram picked up her communication device. Her response was broadcast, not just to the Valdorian fleet, but across galactic communication networks for anyone to hear. This is Elder Bo-Ram Kim of the Verdant Prime Agricultural Cooperative, she said in a sweet, elderly voice. You are trespassing on private farming property. We are in the middle of harvest season and very busy. Please leave immediately, or we will be forced to call pest control. On the Valdorian flagship, Commander Vex looked confused. Sir, did she just call us pests? Admiral Korth's face turned darker. The old woman thinks this is a joke. Show her how wrong she is. Begin orbital bombardment of their largest structures. Target their grain storage facilities first. The Valdorian fleet opened fire. Massive energy beams and explosive missiles streaked down toward Verdant Prime, aimed at what appeared to be large agricultural buildings. The farmers had expected this and were ready. What the Valdorians thought were grain storage silos were actually heavily shielded weapons platforms. As the enemy fire struck them, the silos absorbed the impact without damage. Then their hidden panels opened to reveal quantum torpedo launchers. Fire control, this is Elder Bo-Ram, came the calm voice over the defensive network. You may return fire at will. The response was immediate and devastating. 40 hidden missile silos opened simultaneously, launching quantum torpedoes toward the Valdorian fleet. The missiles were small and fast, designed to penetrate heavy armor and explode inside enemy ships. What are those? Commander Vex shouted as his sensors detected the incoming missiles. Where did they come from? Admiral Korth stared at his display in shock. Those are military-grade quantum torpedoes. How do farmers have access to such weapons? The first wave of missiles struck the Valdorian ships. Explosions blossomed along their hulls as the torpedoes found weak points in their armor. 3 smaller warships were destroyed immediately. 5 more suffered critical damage. Evasive maneuvers, Korth ordered. Return fire on those missile sites. But the Valdorians quickly discovered they were facing more than hidden missile launchers. As their ships moved to attack the silos, other defensive systems revealed themselves. What had appeared to be communication towers were actually sophisticated targeting and control systems. Farm buildings opened to reveal energy weapons capable of striking targets in orbit. The irrigation system that had watered the crops transformed into a network of defensive positions. Tunnels that had carried water now protected human defenders as they moved between fighting positions. Automated weapons rose from hidden positions among the crops themselves. Sir, we're reading massive energy signatures from the asteroid belt, a sensor officer reported. Multiple installations are powering up weapon systems. That's impossible. Intelligence said this was an undefended agricultural system. On the tactical display, Admiral Korth watched in horror as his easy target revealed its true nature. What he had thought was a mining operation in the asteroid belt was actually a series of massive gun platforms. The other farming worlds in the system were activating their own defensive networks. The Battle of Verdant Prime had begun, and the Valdorians were discovering they had made a terrible mistake. On the planet's surface, Taemin coordinated the defense, from his position among the cornfields. His farming equipment had been transformed into mobile weapons platforms. The harvester he used to cut crops was now an armored vehicle with mounted weapons. So Young report on Sector 7, he called. to his daughter. All biomechanical organisms are active, Dad, she replied from her position at a concealed sensor station. I can track every Valdorian ship in orbit. Their movements are being fed to all defensive positions. J-Ho operated fire control systems for a cluster of hidden missile launchers. His years of training with complex farming equipment had prepared him perfectly for military technology. Target acquired on the Valdorian cruiser, he reported. Missiles locked and ready. Fire when ready, son. The young man pressed the firing control, and 6 quantum torpedoes launched from concealed positions around their farm. The missiles streaked upward, guided by targeting data from Dr. Mi Young's biomechanical organisms hidden throughout the crop fields. In orbit, the Valdorian cruiser tried to evade the incoming missiles, but the targeting was too precise. The torpedoes struck the ship's engine section, and it began spinning out of control. "This is impossible!" Admiral Korth raged as more of his ships took damage. "They're just farmers! How are they coordinating such sophisticated defenses?" His tactical officer pointed at the main display. "Sir, our analysis suggests this entire system is one massive defensive network. The farming settlements, the mining operations, even the agricultural equipment, everything has hidden military capabilities." "Get me a communication channel to, the planet," Korth demanded. Elder Boram's image appeared on his screen. She looked like a harmless old woman, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Having some difficulties, Admiral?" she asked politely. "What are you people?" Korth demanded. "No ordinary farmers could mount this kind of defense." "You're absolutely right," Boram replied. "We're not ordinary farmers. We're extraordinary farmers. We grow the best crops in this part of the galaxy. We also happen to be retired Star Force military personnel who chose agricultural life after spending decades protecting the galaxy from people like you." The truth hit Admiral Korth like a physical blow. "You're all former soldiers. Some of the best soldiers humanity ever produced," Boram confirmed. "We came here because we were tired of war and wanted to grow things instead of destroying them. But when someone threatens our families and our farms, we remember our other skills very quickly." On the tactical display, Admiral Korth could see that his fleet of 50 ships was now down to 37 operational vessels. His easy conquest had turned into the most dangerous battle he had ever fought. "Admiral," Commander Vex reported, "urgently, we're detecting additional ships entering the system. Human Star Force vessels approaching at maximum speed." "How many?" 20 ships, sir, including the dreadnought Righteous Fury." Elder Boram's smile became less friendly. "That would be Admiral Dong-hyun Choi arriving with backup forces. Not that we need help, but it's always nice to have friends nearby." Admiral Korth stared at the developing situation. His powerful fleet was trapped between the defensive network of former soldiers disguised as farmers and an approaching Star Force fleet. The easy conquest had become a disaster. "Sir, recommend immediate withdrawal," Commander Vex urged. "No," Korth replied firmly. "The Valdorian Empire does not retreat from farmers. We will destroy this planet and everyone on it." "That would be inadvisable," Elder Boram said calmly. "You see, Admiral, you've made one critical error in your planning." "What? Error?" "You assumed that our defenses were limited to what you could see, but we've been preparing for this moment for 15 years. The weapons you've encountered so far are just the beginning." As if to emphasize her point, the crop fields themselves began to change. Dr. Mi Young's biomechanical organisms spread throughout. The battle for Verdant Prime reached its most intense phase as Admiral Korth Valdorian refused to accept defeat. His fleet, now reduced to 37 ships, regrouped for a desperate assault on the planet's surface. "All ships begin concentrated. Bombardment of the farming areas," Korth ordered. "If we can't capture these people, we'll destroy them and their crops." But the Valdorian attack met something they had never encountered before. As their energy beams struck the crop fields, Dr. Mi Young's biomechanical organisms activated their final defensive protocol. The plants themselves began to absorb and redirect the enemy fire. "Impossible!" Commander Vex exclaimed as he watched their weapons' energy being channeled through the crop fields like a living circuit board. "The plants are using our own energy. Against us!" On the planet's surface, Dr. Mi Young monitored her creation from her underground laboratory. 15 years of genetic modification and biomechanical integration, she said with satisfaction. Every crop plant on this world can now absorb energy and share it with the defensive network. The absorbed energy flowed through root systems that connected every field on the planet. The biomechanical organisms converted the Valdorian weapons' power into energy for the human defensive systems. The more the enemy attacked, the stronger the farmers' defenses became. Elder Boram, Dr. Mi Young reported through the communication network. The biomechanical system is working beyond our best projections. The Valdorian attacks are actually charging our weapons. Excellent. Now show them what 15 years of agricultural research can really accomplish. Dr. Mi Young activated the offensive capabilities of her biomechanical organisms. Throughout the crop fields, plants began to release clouds of specialized chemicals into the atmosphere. The chemicals were designed to react specifically with Valdorian ship systems. Admiral, our sensors are being disrupted, a Valdorian officer reported. Some kind of chemical interference is affecting our targeting systems. What kind of chemicals? Unknown, sir, but they seem to be designed specifically to interfere with our technology. The chemical clouds rose into the upper atmosphere and reached the orbiting Valdorian ships. As the molecules made contact with their hulls, the ship's sensors began to malfunction. Targeting systems failed. Communication between ships became difficult. Navigation computers started giving incorrect readings. It's like the planet itself is fighting us, Commander Vex said in amazement. He was more right than he knew. The entire world of Verdant Prime had become a single living defensive system. Every plant worked together to detect enemies, coordinate defenses, and protect the human farmers who had created this agricultural paradise. Meanwhile, the hidden gun platforms in the asteroid belt revealed their full capabilities. What the Valdorians had thought were mining operations were actually massive weapon systems that had been disguised for 15 years. Station 7 to Verdant Prime, came a voice over the communication network. We have clear targeting solutions on the Valdorian flagship. Harvest Moonbase confirms targeting data, added another voice from the outer system. All asteroid platforms ready to fire on your command. Elder Boram studied the tactical displays in her command center. The Valdorian fleet was surrounded by defensive positions they had never detected. Hidden weapons on 6 different installations throughout the star system all had clear shots at the enemy ships. All stations, you are authorized to fire at will, she commanded. The asteroid belt erupted with weapons fire. Massive energy beams and heavy missiles launched from positions the Valdorians had never suspected existed. The mining platforms revealed themselves to be some of the most powerful gun batteries in human space. Admiral Korth watched in horror as his fleet came under attack from every direction. How many hidden installations are there in this system? Our latest count shows 6. Major defensive positions, his tactical officer reported, plus the planetary surface defenses and an estimated 40 smaller weapons platforms. And the approaching Star Force fleet. Admiral Choi's ships will arrive in 90 minutes. Korth realized his situation was hopeless. His 50-ship fleet was now down to 28 operational vessels, trapped in a system that was one giant defensive network. But his pride wouldn't let him retreat. Deploy ground troops, he ordered. If we can capture some of these farmers, we might be able to force their surrender. Sir, landing troops under these conditions would be— Do it! Transport ships launched from the remaining Valdorian vessels, carrying soldiers toward Verdant Prime's surface. But the farmers were ready for ground combat, too. Taemin coordinated the surface defense from his position among the cornfields. His modified harvesting equipment moved through the crops like armored vehicles, their mounted weapons tracking the incoming enemy transports. So Young, report on enemy landing craft, he called to his daughter. 12 transports approaching. Sector 4, she replied from her sensor station, each one carrying approximately 50 soldiers. J-Ho, are the field defenses ready? All systems active, Dad, his son confirmed. The biomechanical organisms have created a targeting network that covers every square meter of our farmland. The Valdorian transports landed in what appeared to be empty crop fields. The soldiers emerged, expecting to face helpless farmers with simple tools. Instead, they found themselves in a carefully prepared killing ground. The moment the enemy soldiers stepped into the crops, Dr. Mi Young's biomechanical organisms detected them. Every plant in the field began transmitting location data to the hidden defensive systems. The soldiers thought they were walking through ordinary farmland, but they were actually surrounded by a living sensor network. Contact! A Valdorian sergeant reported. But I don't see any defenders. That was because the defenders were underground, moving through the irrigation tunnels that connected every farm in the settlement. Taemin and his team of former Special Forces soldiers could move anywhere in the farming area without being seen. The first attack came from beneath the soldiers' feet. Concealed weapons rose from hidden positions among the crops and opened fire. The Valdorians found themselves under attack by the farmland itself. "The plants are shooting at us," one soldier screamed into his radio. "That's impossible," his commander replied. But it wasn't impossible. It was just very advanced agricultural engineering combined with military tactics. The biomechanical organisms could extend weapons through their root systems and fire at targets detected by their sensor networks. Taemin's team emerged from underground positions throughout the field. These weren't ordinary farmers with simple tools. They were some of the galaxy's most elite former soldiers, fighting to protect their homes and families. The battle was swift and decisive. The Valdorian ground troops were designed to fight against conventional military forces or helpless civilians. They had no experience fighting against agricultural areas that could think and fight back. "Sir, we've lost contact with all ground teams," Commander Vex reported to Admiral Korth. "All of them?" "Yes, sir." The last transmission was a soldier claiming that the Korn was shooting at him. Admiral Korth stared at the planet below. In 30 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. The peaceful, farming world had revealed itself to be the most sophisticated defensive system he had ever seen. "Admiral Choi's fleet has arrived in the system," the sensor officer announced. "Admiral Dong-hyun." Choi's voice came over the communication system, broadcast to both the Valdorian fleet and the farmers below. "Admiral Korth, this is Admiral Choi, of the Human Star Force. You are hereby ordered to surrender your vessels and prepare to be taken into custody for unprovoked aggression against human civilian populations." "These aren't civilians," Korth protested. "They're military personnel." "They're farmers," Elder Boram's voice interjected. "They grow crops and raise animals for a living. The fact that they're very good at defending themselves doesn't change their chosen profession." Admiral Choi's 20 ships took positions around the Valdorian fleet. Combined with the defensive installations throughout the system, the enemy was now completely surrounded. "Admiral Korth," Choi continued, "you have two choices. Surrender now, and be treated according to galactic warfare conventions, or continue fighting and face the combined forces of our defensive network and my fleet." Korth looked around his bridge at his remaining officers. His fleet was outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped in a system where every asteroid and planet could fight back. "There is a third option," Elder Boram added helpfully. "You could try to attack our crops again, but I should warn you that our farmers take agricultural damage very personally. We've been known to hold grudges." The threat was delivered in such a sweet, elderly voice that it was almost funny. Almost, but not quite, because everyone knew she was completely serious. "Sir," Commander Vex said quietly, "we've lost more than half our fleet to farmers. If we continue fighting, we might not have any ships left to surrender." Admiral Korth closed his eyes and made the most difficult decision of his military career. "All ships, stand down weapons. Prepare for surrender." "A wise choice," Elder Boram replied. "Our young people were just getting warmed up, and I'd hate to see what they're capable of when they really get started." As the Valdorian ships powered down their weapons, the farmers of Verdant Prime began Sci. 3 weeks after the Battle of Verdant Prime, the galaxy was still talking about what had happened. The Valdorian Empire, which had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for 1,000 years, had been defeated by farmers. The news spread to every corner of civilized space. On Verdant Prime, life had returned to its normal routine. Taemin walked through his cornfields in the early morning, checking the plants as he had done for 15 years. But now, the corn looked slightly different. Dr. Mi Young's biomechanical organisms had permanently integrated with the crops, giving them a subtle glow that could only be seen at certain angles. "Dad, the harvest is ready in Sector 12, called So Young as she jogged between the rows. Her life had changed dramatically since the battle. She now knew her true heritage as the daughter of an elite soldier, but she was still a farmer who loved growing things. "Tell your brother to bring the harvester," Taemin replied. "But use the regular one, not the combat version." Both versions of their farming equipment still existed, the peaceful tools for growing crops and the hidden weapons systems that had helped defeat the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The farmers had decided to keep both. just in case. J-Ho arrived driving the regular harvester, the one designed only for cutting corn. But everyone on Verdant Prime knew that at the touch of a button, it could become something much more dangerous. "Any word from the delegation?" J-Ho asked as he began setting up the machine. "They arrived this afternoon," his father replied. "Representatives from 12 different worlds, all wanting to establish agricultural trade agreements with us." So Young laughed. "You mean they all want to make sure we don't decide to attack them?" "Can you blame them?" Taemin asked. News travels fast in the galaxy. Everyone now knows that human farming communities might not be as harmless as they appear. The truth was even more significant than most people realized. Admiral Dong-Hyun Choi had revealed that there were 47 similar communities scattered throughout human space. Each one was a peaceful agricultural settlement populated by retired Star Force personnel. Each one was also a hidden defensive installation capable of protecting entire star systems. It's brilliant strategy, Elder Boram had explained to the Galactic news reporters who came to interview the farmers. "We wanted peace, so we became farmers, but we also wanted to be ready if peace was threatened." Now anyone who thinks about attacking human space has to wonder, is that farming world really just a farming world, or is it another Verdant Prime? The psychological effect was enormous. The Valdorian Empire had lost more than just 50 warships. They had lost their reputation for invincibility. Rebellions were breaking out across their territory as subject worlds realized their oppressors could be defeated. "The Emperor has recalled all fleets to defend the homeworlds," Admiral Choi had reported during his last visit. "They're too afraid of encountering another farming community to continue their expansion campaigns." In the community hall of Verdant Prime, Elder Boram prepared to meet with the arriving delegates. Representatives from multiple star systems wanted to establish diplomatic relations with humanity now that they understood the true nature of human defensive capabilities. "Elder Boram," announced Jin Woo Nam, who had returned to his role as the settlement school teacher. "The delegation ships are requesting permission to land." "Grant permission, but remind them this is a working farm. They shouldn't be surprised if they see agricultural equipment that looks a bit more sophisticated than usual." The first ship landed in the designated area near the community hall. Ambassador Krell of the Hegemony emerged, followed by diplomats from 11 other civilizations. They looked nervous as they approached the simple farming community that had defeated the galaxy's most feared military force. "Welcome to Verdant Prime," Elder Boram said warmly, greeting them like the elderly farmer she appeared to be. "I hope you don't mind if we continue our normal work while we talk. It's harvest season, and crops won't wait for diplomacy." As they walked through the settlement, the delegates tried not to stare at the farming equipment that moved with obvious military precision. Children played between crop rows that glowed softly with biomechanical energy. Farmers tended plants that everyone now knew could serve as weapons if necessary. "Your agricultural techniques are quite remarkable," Ambassador Krell observed carefully. "We grow the best crops in this part of the galaxy," Boram replied proudly. "Of course, we've had to develop some unusual methods to protect our farms from pests." "About those pests," another delegate interjected, "we wanted to discuss mutual defense agreements." "Defense agreements? We're just farmers. Farmers who defeated 50 Valdorian warships," Elder Boram smiled. "Well, we don't like it when people damage our crops. We worked very hard to grow them." The negotiations continued throughout the day. Every delegate wanted the same thing: assurance that their worlds would not be targets if humanity decided to expand its agricultural operations. They offered trade deals, technology exchanges, and formal peace treaties. "The galaxy has learned an important lesson," observed Ambassador Trell of the Democratic Worlds. "Never underestimate farmers who really love their crops." As evening approached, the delegates prepared to leave. They had gotten what they came for: formal agreements establishing peaceful relations with humanity. But more importantly, they had spread the word that human farming communities were not to be disturbed. After the delegates departed, the families of Verdant Prime gathered for their weekly community meeting. But this time, they had special guests. Dr. Mi-Young Seo had invited agricultural scientists from the human Star Force to see her biomechanical organisms. "The applications are incredible," explained Dr. Park Sung-ho, the lead Star Force researcher. Crops that can defend themselves, coordinate with defensive systems, and even generate energy. We could revolutionize agriculture throughout human space. Just remember, Dr. Mi Young replied, these organisms were created to protect farmers and their families. That should always be their primary purpose. So Young and Jae-ho sat with other young people from the settlement, planning their futures. The battle had shown them capabilities they never knew they possessed. Now they had to decide how to use those abilities. I want to study agricultural science at the university, So Young announced. But I also want to learn advanced defensive systems. Maybe I can help design the next generation of farming communities. I'm staying here, Jae-ho decided. Someone needs to help train the next group of young farmers. Besides, I like growing things. It's more satisfying than destroying them. Elder Bo-ram listened to the young people with satisfaction. They understood that strength and peace could exist together. They could be farmers who loved growing crops and also defenders who could protect what they had built. What happens now? Asked Captain Soo-jin Park. The galaxy knows what we're capable of. Will we go back to just being farmers? We never stopped being farmers, Elder Bo-ram replied. We just reminded everyone that farmers can be very protective of their land. As the meeting ended, families walked home under stars that seemed more peaceful than before. The Valdorian Empire was in retreat. Other aggressive civilizations were reconsidering their expansion plans, and human farming communities throughout the galaxy continued their quiet work of growing food and protecting peace. Taemin stood in his fields one last time before going to bed. The corn swayed gently in the evening breeze, its biomechanical glow barely visible in the starlight. Tomorrow he would continue the harvest. His children would help. The community would work together as they always had. But now the galaxy knew the truth about human farmers. They grew the best crops in space. They created the most beautiful agricultural worlds. They were peaceful people who loved creating life instead of taking it. And if anyone was foolish enough to threaten their families or damage their crops, they would discover that attacking a human farm was the most dangerous mistake anyone could make in the galaxy. The farmers of Verdant Prime had shown that the strongest defense grew from the humblest beginnings. A peaceful community, working together, protecting what they loved, could stand against any enemy. Somewhere in space, on farming worlds throughout human territory, other communities continued their quiet work, growing crops, raising families, living in peace. And if anyone asked whether they were really just farmers, the answer was simple. Of course they were farmers. They grew things. They took care of the land. They fed people throughout the galaxy. The fact that they could also defend themselves was just good agricultural practice. After all, every farmer knew the importance of protecting their crops from pests, even very large pests with 50 warships and delusions of conquest. The galaxy had learned its lesson: never attack a human farm. The results might be more than anyone bargained for, and on Verdant Prime the harvest continued.